and a leader among Fox's all-time best-selling DVDs. To this day, there is a gold statue of Napoleon Dynamite on the Fox lot. Merchandise for this movie was everywhere, especially Vote for Pedro t-shirts, and Jon Heder actually kept the original Vote for Pedro t-shirt for years, but then traded it to a prop guy on a movie he did later for one of the original golden snitches from Harry Potter. The movie spawned a PSP and Nintendo DS game in 2007 and was turned into an animated series on Fox in 2012, but that show was canceled after 6 episodes. For years, the city of Preston, Ohio held a Napoleon Dynamite Festival in the summer. The festival included a tetherball tournament, tater tot eating contest, moon boot dance, and football throwing contest. And fans still visit the city to this day. In 2020, the film's stars said they would be open to doing a sequel, and Jon Heder said if that was ever to happen, he would like to take the character in a darker direction. Napoleon Dynamite cost $400,000 to make, but went on to gross $46.1 million.
喺200 เมตรเลี้ยวขวา
Believed or they were being disregarded in some way, it became a very important issue for me.
Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York is leading an effort to change the way the military handles the problem of sexual assault in the armed forces. Gillibrand points to victims who complain that too often commanders ignore their allegations.
Did you see a correlation, I guess? I know they're very distinct, two different issues.
There's always a correlation. Military sexual assault has been covered up, sexual harassment's been covered up. These cases often don't see the light of day. And on the UAP side, it's something the military didn't want to talk about publicly. They were addressing it from my perspective in a very paternalistic way that's not validating that something actually happened to them. I think it's duplicitous and inappropriate.
Ryan, you say that you want to get to a point where people feel comfortable reporting them. Do they not?
It's a big risk to go publicly on this topic. At the end of the day, if you're going to highlight yourself, at least in the military aviation communities, for something like this, there's very little upside for you. In the Navy, we deal with problems after the fact and not before the fact. We fix things after people die, and we write our procedures and our lessons in blood. And, I think there's opportunity perhaps to avoid that in this scenario.
I've heard many reports that service members who witnessed unidentified aerial phenomenon and recorded it on the instruments that they had available to them were often disregarded or disbelieved or retaliated against for coming forward with information about these sightings. Those individuals are whistleblowers and they should be heard.
One of the biggest moves Congress has taken is to enact this law that includes a process for people within the military, within the spy agencies to come forward to Congress, but also to the Pentagon AARO office with their testimony. In other words, if they signed a non-disclosure agreement and were told never talk about this secret program, you sort of get a get-out-of-jail-free card. You can come forward. There's supposed to be a process for that to help Congress unearth some of these programs that might exist that have not seen the light of day.
The UAP task force has refused access to a broad crash retrieval program.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean?
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
David Grush is undoubtedly the biggest whistleblower that we've ever had in history. I mean, he's the first official whistleblower that came forward with the legislation that came out in the NDAA. And he's saying that I've interviewed all of these people. It was my job to interview all of these people. I was sent out to do it. I had the clearances. These people were telling him that they had first-hand experience with craft and with biologics.
So right now, there are whistleblower cases happening around this issue. So anybody out there who may have been involved in a program-related UAP, black program related to this topic, particularly if they think it may not have been appropriated by Congress and authorized, they can now come forward and share that information in a secure environment without violating the law or their obligations.
We now have a
and basically saying we believe there are secret programs buried deep in bureaucracy that are hiding either UFO crash materials or, you know, some other sort of exotic technology that we don't think is human made. And just the simple fact that that's happening, it's not just people from the fringe, it's not, you know, people just claiming that they believe this or that. These are the people that are entrusted with the nation's secrets. Some of them are coming forward and saying, hey, there's more to learn here, and we want to help you find out. And I think that's remarkable.
Because I helped those people from the government and the Aerospace Corporation that showed up in my office and gave them advice on how to do the kinds of analysis they wanted to do, they started coming back to me for more. A case in point is the Atacama mummy, which many people know about. I was brought to help study it because somebody thought it was an alien. In fact, I have to be honest. I mean, I reached out to them and said, you're claiming it's an alien. I can prove or disprove it, at least looking at its DNA, if it has DNA. I had 2 other Stanford professors, specialists in genetics, a bunch of graduate students, and I had the world's expert in pediatric bone disorders on the paper. That, of course, went worldwide. And you know what the title was? Stanford professor sequences DNA of alien baby. It was all over the world. I eventually proved that it was a human stillbirth with multiple mutations and bone dysmorphias. My entree to the UFO community was, you know, the hated one. You know, the guy who disproved that it was an alien.
It's one of those weird ones. Gary Nolan's a significant character because the subject has lacked that scientific connection. So we rely on people like Gary Nolan to say, I've seen the evidence and this is how I assess the evidence. And we need people to do that for us.
Because I'd gotten a Department of Defense award for doing ovarian cancer that came about at the same time that I was doing the work, I was accused of being blown off. These kinds of conspiracy things that you never live down. I still see it in Reddit forums every once in a while. You know, science can be done on these things because there's a whole bunch of data on the table, but once you start looking amongst all the puzzle pieces, interesting stuff starts to show up.
I was always driven by curiosity. I was at a boarding school, so I was 7 years old, and the headmaster of the school, one of his neighbors, had taken a home movie of the UFO from his backyard. And the headmaster of the school was so excited about this, he felt we all needed to see this movie. We all saw a 3 to 5 minute segment of a massive golden disc-shaped object. And one of the things that was interesting was Kyle's little page, everything he was about in your wife, but when something goes into it, you see it's actually not very dense, it's listening. This is way before computer-generated imagery, this is Kodak, real emotion stuff. I don't know how that could have been fake. And the women the cloud eventually disappeared and they came out the other side. I was thunderstruck, and a bunch of us went running outside looking at the night sky that night to see if we could see something. And I started reading every book I could get my hands on. It gave me a lifelong interest. It was virtually no discussion in mainstream news outlets, and yet meanwhile, local papers, there were thousands and thousands of reports from small communities all over the world, where people in their community had experiences and seen things, you know, a local doctor or mayor. So there was a huge disconnect between the national media and the regional media. And why is there such a paradox? In 1950, I believe it was May of 1950, Enrico Fermi was a nuclear physicist, one of the fathers of the atom bomb. He was one of the seminal physicists involved in advancing research and our understanding of quantum mechanics and subatomic particles and so forth. He continued to visit Los Alamos after the Avatar was developed during the summers. He was in the cafeteria lunching with some other scientists, and the issue of alien life came up. And he made this wisecrack. Well, where is everybody? And everybody had a good chuckle about that, but that has become known as Faraday's paradox. If there's life in the universe and life elsewhere in our galaxy, how come we don't see any evidence? We don't detect any radio signals, etc. The ironic thing is that even as he was saying that, the director of security at Los Alamos had his hair on fire because there were so many UFO sightings right around Los Alamos. At the very same time he's saying that, I mean, everybody around Los Alamos, security people, pilots, scientists, everybody was seeing these things. Just a few months before, there was an overflight of about 100 UAP over the town of Farmington, New Mexico. You know, front page news across the states. And so it's this huge disconnect for people in the scientific community saying, how come there's no evidence? And meanwhile, there's these things that could be really enclosed that are swarming all around the very facility where they're saying this.
Is that?
Wait, are you recording that right now?
Yeah, look, what is that?
The cabin was our place, our little hunting post. I certainly didn't expect anything cuter to happen. Well, after that night, I became scared. I bought a shotgun, I bought a pistol. I was really strung out. I heard I had been assaulted. And that was obvious to me. I mean, I had a mark on the side of my head. I had been rectally injured. I was obviously the victim of an assault of some sort, but when? Who?
associated with the CIA came to my office one day and started talking about UFOs. They said, we have this medical data, we need your help. Looking at the brain scans, we found the same internal scarring. What's special about these people? Well, they're pilots. We're seeing them in the morning, afternoon, we're seeing them in the evening, and they're the neighbors. They don't correlate with the technology that I'm aware of as a fight.
All of these different government agencies had pertinent information on this topic that they weren't sharing. There was virtually no discussion in mainstream news outlets. Yet meanwhile, local papers, there were thousands and thousands of reports all over the world.
After that night, I became scared. I had a mark on the side of my head. I had been rectally injured. I was obviously the victim of an assault of some sort, but when?
UFO researcher, really legendary in many ways.
I'm not sure it's common knowledge, but the Alicia Lacombe character, played by Francois Truffaut, is actually based on Jacques Vallée.
C'est vrai que les 10 dernières années, il y a eu une révolution dramatique dans les théories physiques qui nous autorise maintenant à penser en termes d'autres dimensions, en termes d'interaction entre la conscience humaine et la réalité physique. He started out as very much a kind of nuts and bolts kind of guy. You know, the UFO was a machine in the sky, and it was about tracking things with NASA and, you know, maps and astronomy, etc. He's moved very much to a view that it's also about folklore. It's about religion. It's about consciousness.
Jacques Vallée is certainly one of the most influential, one of the most, I think, intellectually nuanced and innovative thinkers who've been a part of the UFO world now for a good long time.
On this subject of paranormal, of UFO, UAP, does it feel the world has changed?
The public's awareness of the problem has deepened in the last 5 years, certainly. People are taking it more seriously because now it's not just one person seeing something, it's one person seeing something supported by technology that we trust. So that takes the whole subject to another level. I was just in Washington a few days ago because I'd been asked to brief some staff people on the background of the problem.
Just last week, the U.S. government revealed they are tracking more than 650 potential cases of so-called unidentified aerial phenomena, more commonly known as UFOs. Director of the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, Sean Kirkpatrick.
Of those over 650, we've prioritized about half of them to be of anomalous, interesting value.
I was informed in the course of my official duties of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program, to which I was denied access to those additional read-ons when I requested it.
So, to be clear, you were meeting with Aero staffers?
I'd rather not talk about who asked to meet with me. And there are a number of us, are providing background data, historical data, so that hopefully some of the mistakes made before are not repeated.
Jacques Vallée, International Authority on the UFO Experience.
First thing I'd like to dispel is a frequent misconception that UFOs are limited to this country. Well, UFOs are not an American phenomenon. They are a worldwide phenomenon.
The ufology community, it has to be said, is a diverse community. There's lots of different voices, lots of different perspectives involved. Lots of UFO sleuths in the early days, these detectives, these investigators. But Jacques Vallée is the first, probably the first great one, and the one who really makes a huge difference is this guy down in Quito. A retired military man, a guy who then makes a career as a pulp fiction writer. So he's got connections to both of those worlds. And he is assigned by one of these pulp magazines to actually conduct a kind of investigative journalistic reportage about this topic. The UFO movement, as we know it today, really begins just a few years before this, in 1947. There's a private pilot by the name of Kenneth Arnold who's flying over Washington State, who sees these 9 objects flying in a pattern at enormous speeds in formation, and he reports this to the media. And from that moment on, you start to see a wave of sightings across America.
of his sources in the military and in intelligence. And he publishes in 1950 an article and a book later on called The Flying Saucers Are Real, about this phenomenon.
Is there any tangible evidence that these flying saucers exist? Well, I'm positive they exist. The weight of the evidence makes it impossible to arrive at any other conclusion.
This book is really, really important for a number of reasons. First of all, the arguments it makes, that the